Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 457 of Mriyaslava. In today's episode, I'm going to be giving my full and transparent review of City Skylines 2, not only as someone who has been a long-time player, but also as somebody who was involved in the testing and was given early access to the game. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the ethics of releasing a game early. This video is going to be kind of similar to the first video I did, where I'm kind of just using the city as a backdrop and using that to just be able to talk about something in the background. There isn't anything particularly, super interesting that happens this episode. It's really just a lot of expansion, and I think the most interesting thing is probably the tram system that you'll see me do later on. But again, that's mostly just placing stops and creating lines, so I think that there isn't anything there that I really need to explain. For those that are interested in what I'm doing, I'll section up the video into chapters so you can go through and kind of just see what I'm doing. But otherwise, there's a lot to talk about here. Obviously, City Skylines 2 has released now and is available to the public. And now that it's out and I've seen the reaction to the game, there's some things I wanted to touch on and discuss. So if you weren't aware, the last 3 videos I did were part of a collaboration with Paradox. Essentially, I get early access to the game, and in exchange, I make a sort of 3-part series expanding the city and showing the public the game. I wasn't paid for any of this, it was a mutual agreement, I guess. And everything I said was completely transparent. There wasn't anything I lied about in there or that I sort of falsified. There were just some things as part of those videos that I wasn't able to discuss. And that really mainly included the performance, which you might have noticed was, very absent from my video. Now, personally, I think I'm actually kind of glad that I wasn't able to talk about it, because in the first video where I sort of discussed the game, by the time that video was out, a lot of the performance problems that I would have been talking about were fixed, or at the very least were better. And I did mention it in my videos, but every update that got pushed as we were playing with early access did make the game better and better. At the time, the virtual texturing time, on the loading screen was around 10 minutes for me. And now, last time I played the game, it was around 1 minute. So that is a very big improvement. I'd still, obviously rather that wasn't there at all, but it is improving. So I'll cut to the chase here, because I know this is the juicy parts that people want to hear. I like City Skylines 2, but I don't think that it should have released yet. I've said this in my previous episodes, but I really like City Skylines 2, and I wasn't lying about this. I wasn't over-exaggerating. I am really enjoying myself playing the game, but that's just me. Obviously I've have like 5,000 hours in City Skylines 1, so I'm excited about this, and these changes are very exciting to me. The gameplay has been really fun, and it's also sort of a combination of I've never really fully played a city in this kind of style, where I don't have infinite money, I don't have everything unlocked, and it's this sort of slow, natural progression, and I'm really enjoying that. So part of it is that new play style, part of it is the new game. There's a lot of stuff going into it for me. But I know it's not like that for everyone. So if we turn back time a little bit and we think back to City Skylines 1, City Skylines 1 practically became iconic for the 30-minute loading times, or even more. Like when I first played Edbrook, if you want to go all the way back on my channel, that was on my laptop, which didn't even have a GPU, and that had like 1.5 plus loading times. It was really bad. And obviously that's my fault. I'm playing in a pretty shitty computer, but at the same time, those sort of loading times were very well known across the community. And it wasn't just that, but seeking improvements to City Skylines performance was always there. We had FPS booster, loading screen mod. It was always people looking for ways to make the game run better on their machines. The simulation was really heavy on the CPU, and because of all the assets that you had to load in, there was also a pretty high demand for VRAM and just RAM in general, so you could load all those assets in the first place. So I was, personally really, I guess, not just hoping, but even expecting that for City Skylines 2, the performance issues would be at the, top of the list. But as I began playing, it became more and more clear that it was really probably something more like number 5. It was still up there. They still had some targets and they were aware that it was subpar, but it was not as high as it should be, in my opinion. I think when it comes to performance, what angered me the most was when I saw the recommended specs jump up on the Steam page for the game, because it felt really unfair. I spent so much money on my computer already, and mind you, mainly that was for Cities Skylines 1. I upgraded to 32 gigabytes of RAM. I upgraded my GPU to a 2070 Super, which, by today's standards maybe isn't the best out there, but it's only 4 years old. And to me, the fact that that can be obsolete now feels wrong. It doesn't feel like that should be the case. Colossal Order set a target of 30 frames per second for the game, but it's not there yet, and they still released it anyways. And I don't know, I'm in a server with all the other, creators that got early access and everything. And obviously I can't show the messages because everything there is under NDA. But about 2 weeks before the game was set to release, I recommended to both Colossal and Paradox that the game be delayed to the console release, and that way you'd have a unified release. They'd have some extra time to work on it. But for whatever reason, and I can't speculate as to what the reasons were, they just decided to push the game anyways. And, well, here we are, And I think that the reviews on Steam and the status of mixed really do paint a picture for the game's reception, because this is exactly what I was worried about. I mean, Cities Skylines 1 got such a positive reputation over the years, and the thing that I was afraid of with Cities Skylines 2 releasing prematurely was not only would that reputation be soured and the community would be disappointed, but it would just be a failed launch in general, because it is very hard to recover from a bad launch. People often like to point to No Man's Sky as an example of developers being able to turn around a bad launch or a bad game. But I think people have to keep in mind that was a very, very rare case, and that is not the standard of what happens. Now, obviously, I don't think this launch is quite as bad as it was for No Man's Sky. Nowhere near that, actually, but it is still, in my opinion, a failed launch. People aren't happy and people are complaining, and granted, people will do that with anything. But I think that if Colossal and Paradox had waited a little bit more and sorted out more of these issues, it would have been a better launch. But performance issues aside, I don't want it to seem like I'm dwelling on the negatives here. If you haven't seen the last 3 videos already, maybe go do that, because I really am enjoying the game and I am having fun. If I had to give the game a rating right now, I'd probably give it something like a 6.5 out of 10. And once the performance stuff gets ironed out, I'd probably bump that up to a 7. I'm not a game review channel, but that's just kind of my opinion from playing the game and seeing how it is in its current state. Now, with all this in mind, I think there is something to be said about the ethics of releasing games early. And I briefly considered making this into a little video essay, something similar to my Portal RTX video, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that video and that's a topic that interests you, I'd really appreciate if you go check it out. But ultimately, I decided I'd bundle it in with this video because I think Cities Skylines 2 is a very interesting case study into releasing games early. This is a trend that I'm sure a lot of people have noticed, and a lot of people have talked about it already. We had games like Cyberpunk and Fallout 76 that were riddled with bugs when they released. We also had recently CSGO 2, which had a pretty buggy release, wasn't completely finished. And I'm sure there are many more, but those are just, the ones off the top of my head. Now, personally, I really despise this trend of releasing games before they're ready. And that's for a couple of reasons. I mean, the main thing is really, it's just not fair. You pay for a game and you expect to get a finished product. You're not paying for early access. You're not paying for, beta testing or something like that. You want to play the game. And so getting something that is still not ready, that is not up to the quality level it should be, is very disappointing and is also not fair to you as a consumer. I think a trap that a lot of companies end up falling into is the game takes longer than it should, so they deem it necessary to release the game now rather than later, because it would be more unfair to players to release it later than just give them in whatever state it is now. On one hand, I get it, but on the other, it's really not what the players are paying for. There's a game I learned of recently called Routine, and it's been delayed over and over again because the developers want to have a product that not only are they proud of, but that they're sure the players will enjoy, and that it will be worth their time and money. Now, I don't even know if actually saying the game was delayed is correct here, because I don't think they set an official release until they were completely sure. But I think it is something that maybe some developers could learn from. I think that even given the fact that the game was released, in my opinion, prematurely, Paradox and Colossal are doing the best that they can. They're being transparent about their intentions, what they are doing with the game, and what they are going to be doing with the game. And I think at this point, that's really all you can ask for. I'm excited to see the game grow, and I guess ultimately, we'll have to see what becomes of it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.